Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. What you say? Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. Whoa, Minnesota, Minnesota, you treat me so mean. You got the highest taxes that I've ever seen. It's all for the money, none for the show. I'm gonna pack my factory and go. Whoa, Minnesota, you just won't let my company grow. You tax my nose every time it blows. I'm gonna pack my plant and go. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
When I visit with a Minnesota business, I tell them very seriously, I hope they don't have to move and go anyplace. But if they have to make a move, I want them to come to South Dakota.
If you do all your business in Minnesota, as most small business do, then we're one of the highest in the nation as far as taxes go.
I'd rather wake up in Minnesota. I've still got my emotional roots back there, but I'm telling you, my spiritual roots are over here already, because there's a spirit of freedom over here that just no longer exists in the state of Minnesota.
I guess I'm angry at Mr. Clark that he didn't stay in Minnesota, you know, and help the Worthington residents.
There's over 50 businesses who have left. Not all of them have gone to North Dakota. Some of them have just gone out of business or moved to another state completely.
We particularly wanted a plant site very close to the Twin Cities because we want our laboratory people and our manufacturing people from here to go into that and come back within a day. And this is what happens. And the plant could have been built in Minnesota, yes.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
It's too late for me. You know, my business has already moved. So maybe it'll save some other people from being uprooted from where they live and moving to another state.
Rick Jones drives 160 miles a day to keep his job. He's been doing it ever since his company moved from Worthington, Minnesota to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to save money. I'm John Bachman. Many Minnesota businesses have moved to other states or expanded in other states and have taken jobs desperately needed here. There are many reasons why they do that, sometimes because of location, but often because taxes, workers' compensation rates, and other costs are lower outside Minnesota. For the businessman, it's simply good economics. But for Minnesota, it's aggravating an already bad situation, high unemployment, and a state budget that refuses to be balanced. Many of our lawmakers agree now is the time to stop the Minnesota exodus.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. What you say? Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
New Grandma's chocolate chip cookies.
You know what bugs me about some of them chocolate chip cookies, Bessie? No. They're hard and dry. Got no character.
That's right.
But yours are crispy.
Yep.
Fresh tasting, lots of chips. I might add delicious. But the amazing part is, you're the worst cook in Crawford County. What happened?
Just a late bloomer, I suppose.
New Grandma's cookies taste suspiciously close to homemade.
It's a warm welcome home when your feelings show. Show you care and you share the things you love.
With Hot Quick, you give them the goodness of milk and a richer, more chocolatey taste than instant hot cocoa mixes.
Show you care with a warm welcome home.
Hot Nestle Quick chocolate flavor, the rich chocolate taste that's not watered down.
Minnesota lawmakers are meeting in a crucial session. Critics say that years of overspending and a drop in tax revenues because of the recession have left the state broke and headed for a billion-dollar debt. The issues are complex, confusing, and at times overwhelming. But the bottom line is a financial mess that threatens the good life in Minnesota. In the coming hour, we'll be presenting some startling information about jobs in Minnesota, jobs lost to other states. Much of the information is controversial, but our purpose is not to take sides or advocate a position. We'll present the facts, and hope to stimulate discussion and action. Most economists agree a key to balancing the budget is a return to business prosperity and the creation of new jobs. But our reputation as the state that works has already been tarnished by a growing image as a high-tax anti-business state. And the taxes are indeed high, some of the highest in the nation. The top Minnesota brackets for personal and corporate income taxes, 16% and 12% respectively, are the highest in the nation. Minnesota's current 6% sales tax is the second highest in the nation. Business premiums on workers' compensation insurance for injury or disability and manufacturing jobs are the third highest in the nation. And our workers' comp rates are frequently 5 times as high as neighboring states. In addition, Minnesota is now about $300 million in debt to the Federal Unemployment Insurance Fund, a debt that's expected to be paid back by even higher business taxes. Whether Minnesota has a bad business climate has been long debated, but there is growing evidence high taxes are slowing growth in at least one key area, manufacturing. At the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, economist Dave Dahl studied the effects of rising taxes on Minnesota business growth in the 1970s.
We found two things. Number one was that using the selected measures that were in this study, that Minnesota's growth had slowed in the 70s, or at least during the period of 70s we measured, which was really the first 8 years, relative to what it was in the 60s. So that was kind of the first test that we ran. The second test was to look at see how Minnesota's growth compared with that of its surrounding states.
Dahl says before the late 1970s, Minnesota had outpaced the national average in the area of manufacturing growth. And manufacturing is still a vital element of the state's economy, producing about 25% of the state's income. In fact, with the current decline in agriculture, manufacturing jobs may be even more important in the 80s.
So I think you can see this has been an area where we've seemed to have had some comparative advantage over a fairly long period of time. So it seems to be, and it seems to me that where you have some advantage, this sometimes is the place to look. You know, this is where you want to nurture and expand and grow, your chances are. I think another reason why manufacturing is important, and there's a lot of talk about, you know, we're in a service economy and the economy's changing, that in some respects services and manufacturing are not either-or situations, that a good, strong manufacturing economy produces a lot of good service-type jobs. For example, I was reading in some periodical this morning about an industrial design firm, which is the kind of service growth that we really want to have, and a lot of people would like to have. But that growth in that type of firm depends particularly upon having a lot of good manufacturers here, so they've got clients that they can service here and grow and expand. So I think manufacturing helps and nurtures a lot of the other components of the Minnesota economy.
Economist Dahl found that high taxes were slowing Minnesota business growth in the 1970s, especially compared to neighboring states. A new study at the Small Business Development Center at the College of St. Thomas is discovering that much of our neighbors' growth is at the expense of thousands of Minnesota jobs, most of them in the area of manufacturing. The St. Thomas survey won't be complete for another month, but the preliminary findings are staggering. Since 1967, at least 81,000 jobs have been moved out of Minnesota as the result of companies either relocating or expanding out of state rather than growing here. In payroll alone, this amounts to more than $10 billion lost to the Minnesota economy.
And in the long run, you know, the health and the prosperity of all Minnesotans is really dependent upon the income that's derived from manufacturing exports.
Mark Anderson is a tax specialist for the Minnesota Association of Commerce and Industry. He, too, says manufacturing jobs are crucial to Minnesota's economy. United States Department of Commerce figures since 1967 show Minnesota's overall workforce has grown by 460,000 jobs, including 60,000 new manufacturing jobs. But those gains don't comfort Anderson because most of the new jobs are lower-paying service jobs. And while we've gained 60,000 manufacturing jobs, during the same period, the state lost 80,000 other manufacturing jobs. This according to the St. Thomas College study.
Well, I think if we had those 80,000 jobs and we had the manufacturing investment from those 80,000 jobs, we would not have a budget crisis today. We wouldn't have had a budget crisis in 1979, 1980, 1981, and 1982. the income tax revenues, the sales tax revenues, the corporate income tax revenues would have more than funded, I think, most expectations of state and local governments in the last 4 years in Minnesota.
Minnesota Secretary of State Joan Grow reports new evidence that Minnesota does not have a bad business climate. She notes that the number of new incorporations rose from 7,293 in 1981 to 7,313 in 1982. That's the second highest increase in the number of new incorporations. But Anderson says those figures can be misleading.
On its face, those numbers on the new incorporations appear to be, a very optimistic sign for the future. You start to dig deeper into incorporations in the United States, you find out that there are well over 500,000 incorporations per year. Minnesota's share of those incorporations is running a little over 1%, while our population nationally is a little bit less than 2%. So perhaps we're really not getting our share of new incorporations when we compare the Minnesota rate to the national rate. The other things about incorporation statistics are that generally during times of recession and economic decline, the academic scholars have found that the rate of incorporation increases because entrepreneurs and skilled people in declining industries go off and do the things they maybe always wanted to do, and the first step of that is incorporating. Another factor is that many of these incorporations are just reincorporations of existing corporations. They're incorporations of partnerships or proprietorships. This is often found when there's a sale or a transfer of the business or someone's trying to protect assets, that there will be an incorporation in order to do that. I think the figures in the last couple of years are somewhat a positive sign, but I don't think they've signaled that the Minnesota business climate is rosy.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Why don't they just say, when the business comes over there, that the corporate heads have to also move to South Dakota? Why you wouldn't catch them over there dead in South Dakota? Oh, come on. They're 50th in about anything by any standards.
You'd think that this guy was sitting on all of Saudi Arabia's oil and all their wealth. He's sitting there, he's like the captain of the Titanic. He's representing a ship that's sinking.
South Dakota is 50th in everything. That often repeated remark by Rudy Perpich during the Minnesota 1982 gubernatorial campaign, and even after taking office, has added fuel and national attention to a growing border war between the two states competing for business. When asked if he would live in South Dakota, Perpich had this response.
He's the best ambassador we got. He's shoving businesses our way.
South Dakota Governor Bill Jacklow has responded with a challenge to debate Perpich, a challenge Perpich has so far refused to accept.
No, I'm not about to waste my time on one of those back and forth.
But while Jacklow may not get to debate Perpich face-to-face, the South Dakota governor continues to make political hay out of the feud, such as when speaking before the Sioux Falls Junior Chamber of Commerce.
One of the key things that my friend over in Minnesota never figured out is there are none of his problems that will go away by pointing his finger at somebody else. They will go away by rolling up their sleeves and digging in and starting to deal with and address the problems that affect the people in their society just as we've done in ours. And as I said tonight in that interview that I had, you know, for all the things they might want to say about us, I represent a state that has no state debt.
Jacklow is energetically recruiting new businesses to his state from all over the country.
Let me tell you what I tell when I appear before a business group or a prospect to visit with them personally. I tell them, look, I'm sorry, I can't give you a break on your corporate income taxes. We can't give you a hiatus for a few years because we never invented that tax in my state. I can't give you a break on your business inventory taxes because we don't have those taxes in my state. I can't give you any advantages with respect to your workers' personal income taxes because we've never invented that tax in my state. We support our state government on a 4% sales tax and then a few other what we call the vice taxes, cigarettes, liquor, tobacco, gasoline taxes, and that type of thing. But I think it's the whole package. One, you have to look at the regulatory climate. How much does government want to regulate business activity? Two, probably in a more serious way as far as business is concerned, how much money that they make is government willing to let them keep? I guess, let me put it this way. When I visit with a Minnesota business, I tell them very seriously, I hope they don't have to move and go anyplace. But if they have to make a move, I want them to come to South Dakota.
These shovels represent new businesses breaking ground in South Dakota. Estimates vary on the number of Minnesota firms that have made the move, but it's generally agreed at least 60 companies have left since 1969, taking 7,000 Minnesota jobs with them. And that translates to a loss of hundreds of millions of dollars annually in Minnesota's economy. South Dakota's business advantages over Minnesota are numerous and very tough to compete against. In addition, Minnesota's workers' compensation rates are 3 to 5 times higher than South Dakota's for many types of manufacturing jobs. This according to the Minnesota Association of Commerce and Industry. We asked Governor Janklow what he thinks of the high Minnesota comp rates.
I think it's just right. I think your workman's comp is just exactly right. I won't presuppose by any stretch of the imagination to suggest what kind of coverages you ought to give over there. I'd be a fool to sit here and tell you to lower your workman's comp rate. I'd be a fool to tell you to change your laws.
Laverne, Minnesota is located only 12 miles from the South Dakota border, and the city may soon be losing one of its oldest companies, the Laverne Fire Equipment Company. The firm built the Laverne automobile from the turn of the century until just before World War I. It has been continuously building fire trucks since 1912 and currently employs 25 people with an annual payroll of $300,000. The company builds about 50 fire trucks a year. Recent customers have included the Hopkins and St. Louis Park Fire Departments. Owner Ed Elbers says the old building is obsolete and he's losing his lease soon. Elbers says he wants to remain in Laverne, but he says the costs of a new building in Minnesota are prohibitive compared to what Governor Janklow offers him in nearby South Dakota.
You mean the Laverne Fire Truck, Laverne Fire Equipment Company? Yeah. You bet. I personally talked to him. I told him that we'd love to have him in South Dakota, that he's a neighbor of ours over in Laverne, and that if we don't get him now, we'll get him later. I kind of felt like the old Fram filter ad, you know, we'll get you now or we'll get you later. And I just said, we think we have all these things to offer you, and I do recognize that people have an emotional attachment to where they live, to where they grow up. Our people have it as well as Minnesotans. But that if he felt he had to move, I insisted that he come to South Dakota. And his response was, Governor, if we move, I guarantee you we're coming to South Dakota.
I think their quality of life is excellent, just really excellent in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I wouldn't mind living over there at all. They have a pro-business attitude over there, which I really, really enjoy.
Galen Krogman has worked for the Laverne Fire Equipment Company for 3 years. He lives 15 miles east of town, so if his job moves to South Dakota, it will mean commuting about 100 miles a day, or moving to South Dakota.
I would prefer not to. I've lived here all my life. I have all my friends here, so I'd prefer staying around here instead of going over there.
Elbers says he's a loyal Minnesotan, and he hopes the workers' comp laws will be reformed this year enough to permit him to keep his business in Laverne.
Very interested in what legislature does, and if the signs are that they are willing to compromise a little bit, and I think you're seeing this in your unions now, where rather than to see a place close up, we aren't union here, but labor is still dictating policy that we're living under. They're willing to back off and compromise and meet business halfway. I think we would be willing to compromise a little bit on our thinkings and meet halfway and try to stay here, if there's any way possible.
Worthington, Minnesota is about 60 miles east of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yet pizza franchisor Dick Hornberger is willing to make the drive to take advantage of South Dakota's lack of corporate and personal income taxes.
I will be sorry to leave. We've made a lot of friends, and I've been in Minnesota for 6 years now. We started in Worthington, so it'll be hard to leave.
Hornberger owns 8 Godfather pizza shops in southwest Minnesota. He, too, feels a loyalty to Minnesota. He began his chain in Worthington with this store, and it was his corporate headquarters until he recently decided the tax advantages are just too great in South Dakota.
We are leaving because of the main reason is because of the state income tax structure. And we have reorganized our company so that we will be drawing income out of Minnesota and avoiding the tax. major couple of the officers of the company will be going over there also, so that will be a fair savings in workers' comp and personal income tax for us. So that is the reason.
Worthington is losing another and much larger business to South Dakota. This one is Clark Tailor-Made. The company installs grain bins and manufactures grain belt conveyors. The owner is Phil Clark. He still runs the grain bin installation part of his business in Worthington, but he's now setting up the manufacturing side of the business 10 miles west of Sioux Falls.
Let's see. Our workers' comp here in South Dakota for a factory worker is about 1/4 as high as it was in Minnesota. This means that on a typical worker out in my shop, I will save a flat $1 an hour. And it goes a lot farther than workers' comp too. Unemployment is less. I'm led to believe that awards or benefits to the workers on unemployment and on workman's comp, however, bear no relationship to the difference in costs. Certainly the South Dakota worker does not get 1/4 the benefit out of workers' comp that the Minnesota worker does. We have calculated with actual figures that in running a modest-sized crew in this shop, we will save enough on workman's compensation, on unemployment insurance, on general insurance, to nearly pay our entire lease. So the net effect is, in leasing this building in South Dakota, I'll never have to pay the principal on the building, and the savings are going to pay my lease costs, which means I have the use of this good, efficient, modern manufacturing facility for all practical purposes free for the rest of my life. I had really agonized over spending my money in Minnesota for a manufacturing facility, wondering what the resale of it might be with a much more favorable economic climate here in South Dakota and a considerably more favorable economic climate in Iowa. And Worthington, as a border community, was just too close to these two states to risk that kind of an investment without some sort of community or state incentives to do so. Perhaps some of the people still promoting Minnesota's interests are saying to the people that moved to South Dakota, you know, the trouble with moving to South Dakota is when you wake up in the morning, you're still in South Dakota. And yes, in one way, I'd rather wake up in Minnesota. I've still got my emotional roots back there, but I'm telling you, my spiritual roots are over here already, because there's a spirit of freedom over here that just no longer exists in the state of Minnesota.
Clark employs an average of 40 workers. More than half will be forced to work in South Dakota or leave the company. Those willing to move figure they can save over $3,000 a year on income and other tax savings. Ray Jones decided not to make the move. He and his family live in this mobile home in Worthington, and Ray now spends his days working around the home.
I was down at the employment office yesterday, and they had nothing in the 5 counties.
You ready to get up, Brady? Are you ready to get up?
Ray's wife, Lucille, has taken up babysitting while her own children are in school. The family's roots are in Worthington, and leaving is out of the question for them.
Well, I would go if we could afford it and if we knew the job was stable, but it's difficult. The children really don't want to go, and there's a lot of things holding me in here in Worthington that are important to me, and it's hard to quit those connections and start over again.
The daycare and unemployment are enough for Ray and Lucille to support their family, at least for now. But they are deeply worried about how long they can last and bitter about the loss of income.
Well, I don't know who to be mad at. you know, there's no place I can put the blame.
I guess I'm angry at Mr. Clark that he didn't stay in Minnesota, you know, and help the Worthington residents, the ones that are out of work, because we're not the only ones out of work.
I didn't want to see it leave, but there's no way I can blame him for wanting to get out of the state of Minnesota. If he can make the company go over there, and there's no reason he can't with less hassle, why not do it?
Bernita Peck is another Clark employee in Worthington. She's the company accountant and office manager with 10 years seniority. She hopes to stay with the company by commuting to the South Dakota office, even though it's a 160-mile round trip. Bernita is also bitter about her situation, but she blames the Minnesota legislature for failing to make Minnesota workers' comp and other taxes competitive with other states.
I wish the state could have done something. I wish the state would do something. The legislators. I just don't see that they will. I don't know when they're going to wake up to the fact that if they don't, who's going to be left in Minnesota?
Rick Jones is another Clark employee who lives in Worthington and now travels the 160 miles a day to the new plant in South Dakota.
Hi guys, I'm home.
Oh, Dad. Dad, you have a good day?
Yeah.
Rick Jones's day finally ends about 7 p.m. when he gets home to his wife Pamela and children Jennifer, Tom, and Jeffrey. It's been another day of 8 hours of work and 4 hours of driving, and it's too much. Rick and Pamela have decided to move closer to Rick's job, even though that means leaving their hometown and Pam's consulting job in Worthington. It also means trying to sell the family home, or maybe renting it in case things somehow work out so that Rick can work in Worthington again. The family is trying to look forward to the move as a new beginning, but they will miss Worthington, and they will be missed.
I'm gonna miss my grandparents and my great-grandparents and my friends. My paper route.
I think it's time somebody does something about it before other families have to pull up stakes and go to some other state to live.
The next day, Rick again rises before the sun to make the 2-hour drive to work in South Dakota. But for all his troubles, he is grateful to have a job.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Our program is not an endorsement of lower taxes for business or any other action. We present the facts as we found them, urge you to get involved if you want changes. Write your state legislators, and if you don't know who they are, call the League of Women Voters. St. Paul residents call 644-9176. Phones there will be answered until 10:30 tonight. On Monday, the Minneapolis number is 333-6319. The Minnesota League office will be open Monday at 224-5445.
Some things you can fake. Lips, lashes, you know. But one thing you can't fake, looking light. So for me, it's 1-calorie Pepsi Light. I love that touch of lemon. It makes Pepsi Light so refreshing. And that 1 calorie, just one, helps me keep looking light all over. Can't fake that.
Looking Pepsi Light.
Son, I'm gonna throw the book at you.
Not that book. That's Snyder's Price Chopper sale book. It's worth money.
Money?
Yeah, Snyder drugstores are mailing this incredible coupon book directly to your home. Inside, you'll find Triaminosin Liquid or tablets now specially priced.
I won't throw this book at anybody. I'll redeem those Snyder Price Chopper coupons and save. Case dismissed.
Don't get the book thrown at you. Look for your Snyder Price Chopper coupon book. It's free and worth a lot of loot.
The costs of running a business in Minnesota are staggering when compared to surrounding states. The College of St. Thomas and St. Paul conducted a study of those costs using a model business with a $5 million facility, $500,000 in taxable income, and 100 employees in electrical equipment manufacturing. If that business were located in St. Paul, each year it would pay $222,581 in real estate taxes. Corporate taxes would be an additional $38,250. And it would pay $94,230 a year for workmen's compensation insurance. The total state-induced cost in St. Paul then would be $355,061 a year. The same business in bordering states would pay far less. In Fargo, North Dakota, those same state-induced costs, real estate and corporate taxes and workmen's compensation insurance, would total a little over $107,000 a year. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the cost would be a little more, nearly $120,000. Business costs to the south are by far the highest of our neighboring states. In Decorah, Iowa, the study concludes that our model business would pay $208,000 in state-induced costs. And to the east, a business in Hudson, Wisconsin, would pay only $128,000. In all cases, the study shows that it would be cheaper for a business to locate in a neighboring state. In North and South Dakota, the savings are nearly $250,000 a year. In Iowa, nearly $150,000. And in Wisconsin, a corporation could save over $225,000. These high state-induced costs make it particularly hard for businesses on Minnesota borders to compete. A striking example of the Minnesota exodus is taking place right now in the Red River Valley that separates Minnesota and North Dakota.
From this valley they say you are going. We will miss your bright eyes and sweet smile. For they say you were taking the sunshine that has brightened our pathways a while.
Business on the Minnesota side of the Red River Valley is dying, while on the North Dakota side, it's booming. The city of Moorhead did a comprehensive study in late 1981 comparing its economy to its sister city of Fargo, North Dakota. Between 1970 and 1980, Moorhead's population grew only 1%. But in Fargo, during that same 10-year period, the population grew almost 12%. Also, Fargo's per capita income is growing twice as fast as Moorhead's. In the early 1980s, Moorhead lost over 1,000 jobs, mostly in manufacturing. Moorhead also lost 23 businesses to North Dakota. Another 32 businesses either moved out of the area or closed down. Moorhead business leaders blame their business exodus on North Dakota's competitive edge. And few would disagree that surrounding states do enjoy quite an edge over Minnesota when it comes to attracting industry. In North Dakota, the competitive edge is striking. Minnesota's sales tax is twice as high as North Dakota's. The maximum personal income tax is 16% in Minnesota. In North Dakota, the figure is only 7.5%. Corporate income taxes in our state are nearly twice as high as in North Dakota. Gasoline taxes in Minnesota vary from 11 cents on the gallon in the Red River Valley border area to 13 cents statewide. In North Dakota, the gasoline tax is a flat 8 cents per gallon. And Minnesota is a strong union state. North Dakota is a right-to-work state. In addition, North Dakota has other strong tax advantages over Minnesota in attracting new industry. On the positive side, North Dakota law allows for property and income tax exemptions for qualifying new industry for a period of 5 years. Minnesota law does not. On the negative side, Minnesota's workers' comp rates for jobs that pay $20,000 a year are 5 times higher than North Dakota's. And Minnesota commercial property tax rates are much higher. Moorhead's rates are more than double the Fargo rates. Richard Palmer is an industrial developer for the Moorhead area. He says his town's business is dying because it can't compete with the business climate across the river in Fargo.
There's over 50 businesses who have left. Not all of them have gone to North Dakota. Some of them have just gone out of business or moved to another state completely. At one time, almost every implement dealership that you could name, KARE, Minneapolis, Moline, and John Deere, and International Harvester, Farmall, I don't know what some of the other ones are. Almost all of them had businesses in Moorhead. We now have none. Don't have a single one in this town. They're all in Fargo. So that they've all moved. We've lost commercial businesses. Sears no longer has an operation in Moorhead. It's in Fargo. Penny's is in Fargo. Dayton's is in Fargo. Target is in Fargo.
You know, I dearly love the state of Minnesota. It's just, I lived there for 44 years, but they just they really aren't doing anything in the state of Minnesota that's conducive to bringing in new business or keeping the old ones.
Buzz Larson is another ex-Moorhead businessman. He moved his truck stop operation to Fargo recently to save an expected $15,000 a year on reduced taxes and other expenses. His biggest savings will be on workers' comp.
A man that's making $20,000 a year, it's going to cost about $2,300 just for the work comp in Minnesota for that one man. In North Dakota, for a new company starting up, it'll cost $402.
God bless Minnesota, land of 1,000 lakes. We grow sugar beets, corn and potatoes, which we ship to every state. We are happy, true and loyal, and we welcome one and all. God bless Minnesota, the best state of all.
Letha Wallin is a lifelong native of Moorhead. She's a feisty, gregarious, retired school teacher who's proud of her state and hometown, but she too sees problems in the business community.
It hurts. I just about cried when our hardware store went out. I just about cried when our friends went out here in this business. It's a sadness to see people to lose money and to lose friends that are working here, that they have to lose a job and they know they aren't working and you know that they haven't any money coming in. And no matter, we all deserve a living and deserve to make things work if there's a working chance.
Morris Lanning wears two hats in Moorhead. He's vice president for student affairs at Concordia College, and he's been mayor of Moorhead for 4 years.
We're losing population, we're losing business, we're finding it very difficult to attract people and to attract jobs to our community. We're going to see an erosion of our tax base as a result of that kind of thing.
Breckenridge, Minnesota is located 50 miles south of Moorhead. And like Moorhead, Breckenridge is losing business and residents to a sister city, Wahpeton, North Dakota. The difference between the two towns' business districts is striking. Breckenridge is stagnating and closed shops are becoming common. In 1970, Breckenridge had 4,200 residents. Today, it has 3,900. In 1970, Wahpeton had 7,000 residents. Today, it has 10,000. Across the river, Wahpeton is alive with new construction. George Schuler is a native of Breckenridge and one of the leading businessmen in the area. He runs 4 grain elevators in Minnesota and 3 in North Dakota. Schuler says so far all his efforts to convince Minnesota lawmakers to give border towns tax breaks have fallen on deaf ears.
Then we had a meeting along with Governor Quee and his aides, along with our local legislators. And we were bringing up our problems as far as workman's comp and doing business in the state of Minnesota against doing business over there. And they were always promising that they were going to go to the legislature and try to give relief for the businessman in Minnesota so he could compete with the businessman in North Dakota. But we always get down the line and somebody proposes these bills and then somewhere in the legislature they kill them off. So consequently there's supposed to be always some relief for the border town, for the border businessman, but we never get the relief. It's always promised, we've never had it. Perpich has promised it and Quee promised it, and now we're back to Perpich again. Now I don't know what's going to happen, but you can't live in hopes forever because it's just like a dying man grasping for breath. You only can grasp so long and then you're dead. And I don't know how long we can keep on going because we just can't compete anymore.
Schuler says he can't move his Minnesota grain elevators to North Dakota, but he can move himself. A year ago, George bought a new home in Wahpeton. Each day he checks on it and occasionally lives there, but he has not fully moved in yet.
The home I have in Breckenridge, I offered it up for sale. It's 11 months been listed and I haven't had a looker. I'm going to have to think, I have to make a move here pretty soon because I can't afford to keep 2 households up. And so consequently, I'm going to have to either lower that price down to practically give it away in order to move it.
So most nights, George returns to his Breckenridge home to stay with his wife, Pamela, and son, Jamie. Jamie's a senior at the Breckenridge High School. He's not anxious to move, and he's not alone.
I grew up in Breckenridge, and George and I both graduated from high school here. It was really hard for me to think of moving from Breckenridge because I was on the County Planning Commission. I'm on the local library board and active in things in Breckenridge. And it's different now to be part of Wahpeton.
Legalized gambling is an indirect tax advantage business has in North Dakota. Each year, the games raise about $50 million for the state treasury. We found ex-Minnesotan Jim Post at this card table in Wahpeton.
I can see why people want to get the hell out of Minnesota. The taxes are getting pretty high, and I'm sure these businesses feel the same damn way there. Why not go someplace else when you can get by a lot cheaper? I can see that. The businesses are moving out of Minnesota and moving into these bordering states because they can get by a lot cheaper on their taxes. Why stay here and get taxed to death when you can go someplace else and get by a lot cheaper? It only makes sense to me.
The competitive edge doesn't just lie to the west, but to the east as well. Although Wisconsin was once plagued with a reputation as an anti-business state, that reputation is changing. And Wisconsin is becoming an attractive alternative for businesses looking for solutions to higher costs in Minnesota. Minnesota's sales tax is 6 cents on the dollar compared to 5 cents in Wisconsin. Minnesota's personal income tax stands at a maximum 16%. In Wisconsin, the figure is only 10%. Top corporate taxes in Minnesota are 12%, while Wisconsin's are only 7.9%. And manufacturing firms in Minnesota pay nearly triple the Wisconsin workmen's compensation rates.
With our salaries at over $1 million, the move to Wisconsin could save us anywhere from $65,000 to $70,000 a year. So it's just a matter of economics. We really don't have a choice in the move. We just have to do it.
Knutson Trucking has operated out of Red Wing for decades.
Well, Gary, your load today will pick up trailer 630 over at Northfield and take to Solon, Ohio. Deliver Wednesday night at 6.
The firm provides about 100 jobs and does business in every state in the nation. They've already moved the business office across the Mississippi River into Hager City, Wisconsin. Land has been surveyed for the trucking terminal, and it's all but certain that construction will start this year.
The move will take place this summer, unless, of course, the legislature might have a change of attitude. Not attitude, but it might make some adjustment to the workman's comp rate.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Texas and New Orleans await you. Holiday Travel's 14-day Texas-New Orleans tours are filling fast, so call soon. And remember, Holiday Travel offers a 100% refund up to 24 hours before departure if you must cancel from any motor coach tour. For a free Texas and New Orleans brochure, call Holiday Travel in Roseville at 633-1122.
I'll show you why a professional likes Reynolds quality plastic wrap. For starters, it handles like a dream. Next, try this test at home. Reynolds plastic wrap and the leading brand. Reynolds holds its shape better, and that gives Reynolds its super tight cling. Try wrapping both halves of an onion. Set your timer for 5 minutes and see for yourself. For better cling, try Reynolds quality plastic wrap. The plastic wrap professionals use.
The companies which have expanded in other states or moved read like a who's who in Minnesota business. One job lost or an opportunity that didn't happen is important to someone, but the impact grows with the size of the company.
Some 13 new plants, other than acquisitions, that we have had in the last, well, since 1970. None of them have been built in Minnesota. Had they all been built here, and they wouldn't have all been built here, but had they, I think we would have added between 4,000 and 5,000 3M jobs in this state.
A 3M plant in Menominee, Wisconsin should have been built in our state. It's a pilot plant used by divisions as a small operation before taking the next step to a major plant.
We particularly wanted a plant site very close to the Twin Cities because we want our laboratory people and our manufacturing people from here to go into that and come back within a day. And this is what happens. And the plant could have been built in Minnesota, yes. We have had approaches from other states trying to entice us, either this headquarters or part of it or our plants or whatever, into their states. And we had no approaches from Minnesota. Whether we stayed or didn't stay didn't seem to be of concern.
Tom Valenti retired last summer as president of the Onan Corporation. The company built a new plant in Fridley about a decade ago. Still growing, a few years later, they wanted to expand on the Fridley site. But about that time, lawmakers raised taxes on business. Valenti says they looked around and built a $25 million plant in Huntsville, Alabama.
The governor of Alabama, Governor Wallace, the mayor of Huntsville, Joe Davis, and all of the people down there just aggressively pursued an opportunity to bring investment and jobs to their state. And as inducement, what they did for us when we finally decided to go in, they did all of our site preparation work, $250,000 worth of preparing the site and putting in the parking lots and driveways and all that sort of thing. We were located on a site adjacent to the Huntsville-Madison County Airport, and we had our own company plane, so they put in a paved taxiway right off the end of the runway up to our front door. That was worth about $50,000. We paid no sales taxes on the materials that were used to construct the building or to buy machinery, and that saved us between $700,000 and $750,000. We'll never pay any real estate taxes there. And secondly, any new additions to our plant or facilities, we'll not have to pay any sales taxes on the materials and equipment that go in there. We put another $55 million into that facility in 1981. And there probably will be an additional $50 or $60 million that goes into there over the next couple of years. Those could create another 600 or 700 jobs. Those jobs could just as well have been here.
Cargill built a sunflower processing plant in Riverside, North Dakota 2 years ago. Company officials say their most pressing concern was to have the plant where the crop would be, and that was heading west.
But in addition to that, we did have a number of communities in North Dakota and in South Dakota who made proposals to us and who appealed to us to locate in either of those two states. And there were some incentives there that made us give consideration to North Dakota. The first one was income tax abatement and a property tax abatement. And eventually, what we ended up with was a 5-year property tax abatement and a 3-year income tax abatement, which certainly was a factor in considering that we should be located in North Dakota.
That these companies have moved or expanded outside Minnesota is not surprising. The competitive fact is that in the 5-state area, it costs more to do business in Minnesota. Of all of our surrounding states, Minnesota has the highest personal and corporate income taxes and the highest workmen's compensation insurance rates for manufacturing. Additionally, sales and gasoline taxes soar above those levied by our neighbors, and we have the highest real estate taxes in the 5-state area.
We obviously would like to have people stay in Minnesota. That's a given. I think it's going to be very difficult to say to them, for instance, that we will ever have a tax structure like South Dakota. The reason we will never have a tax structure like South Dakota is because we believe in educating people. We believe in providing some human services to the elderly and to the poor. We just have a fundamental philosophy that it's not based on any kind of partisan feelings. It's just been a long-standing tradition of the state that you take care of your people. We believe that the best investment that we can make is an investment in the educational systems of the state, and it has reaped great benefits.
There are more new jobs in the city of St. Paul in the last 5 years than there are in the entire state of South Dakota. South Dakota, not being flippant about it, but it's not a good place to live and do business as compared to Minnesota. Some people like that atmosphere, and some don't. But the criteria that are used, I'm proud of our educational institutions. I'm proud of our University of Minnesota Medical School. I feel strongly that there's a belief in the minds of many that it's a bad place to do business, not because of the nuts and bolts of whether it is or not, but because many people have been saying it loud enough and long enough, it may become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I don't think we'll have any problem equaling Wisconsin. I think that we'll get that job done without too much of a problem. South Dakota, North Dakota, I doubt if that'll ever happen. You know, North Dakota, of course, has energy resources. As a result, they're able to draw on those to pay a part of their bill. South Dakota, their labor rates are roughly 1/2 of what they are in Minnesota. I think that's a big factor also. So you talk about workers' comp, you talk about taxes, and you also have to talk about labor rates.
I think we have good wages and good conditions in the state of Minnesota. I think we built a good economic base, and I think that's reflected in our tax system, even though it's a high tax system, basically because of our high dedication and commitment to education and our way of life. I think this has served Minnesota well.
All I've ever been told is quality of life. That's why you pay more taxes. That's why everything is better over here. But can we afford the quality of life?
Somebody said about this problem that it's like a lot of others where the problems are emotional, the arguments are political, and the solutions are usually technical. I think that's true in workers' comp, and that if we can defuse the atmosphere and get the people who understand what the real problems of the system are together, that we can make some progress towards solving it.
Political cartoonist Steve Sack has been following the business exodus with a wry sense of humor for the Minneapolis Star and Tribune. But while we can joke about the business climate, the problem is not funny when you realize just how many jobs and company expansions we've lost in recent years.
We're not advocating or recommending any specific action by lawmakers or the governor. We are suggesting you do something if you think changes should be made. Write your legislators. You can find out who they are by calling the League of Women Voters. St. Paul residents can call right now at 644-9176. The Minneapolis office will be open Monday morning at 333-6319, as will the Minnesota League office at 224-5445. Lawmakers do pay attention.
This is Robitussin cough medicine, a name you trust. And this is new Robitussin Night Relief Colds formula. A responsible way to treat nighttime cold miseries for hours of restful sleep. New Robitussin Night Relief works fast to help you breathe easier so you can sleep. Works hour after hour to relieve sniffles, coughs, aches, fever. Trust Robitussin Night Relief Colds formula, a responsible way to treat nighttime cold miseries.
This Foreman and Clark job's gonna be a cinch. Harris tweed sport coats. Must be worth a fortune. Nice wool, well tailored, $115. See, that was $125 last year. And look at that. Holy cow. 3-piece corduroy suits for just $75. Oh, the night watchman. Hey, why should I risk robbing Foreman and Clark when the prices are a steal anyway? I think I'll just step back in here and wait till the store opens tomorrow and then buy a few suits. It's just like stealing them anyway.
Minnesota has some serious financial problems. That's not news, certainly not to thousands of families struggling through the hard times. The reasons for our troubles are as complex as the solutions will be. Some we cannot control. Others, however, we can if some right decisions are made. We talked to people who said it'll take a united effort with bending and cooperation from all sides. That seems to make sense and could be the best advice. I'm John Bachman. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
From this fast